This segment is brought to you by Jig Masters. Step up your game with high-quality performance jigs, spinner baits, buzz baits, and more from jigmasters.com. And always, when in doubt, get the jig out.
Welcome to the Feather and Fur segment on the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network. Join me, Brad Hurlebus, as we sit around the campfire with this week's special guest to talk hunting, dogs, traditions, and all things outdoors. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Feather and Fur Podcast. I am Brad Hurlebus, and tonight we have Austin Mitchell on. Austin Mitchell is a fellow kayak enthusiast, hunter, fisherman, all-around outdoorsman, so let's just bring him on in. Hey, Austin.
Hey, man. How's it going?
It's going good. Thanks for being on the show tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Austin's been on the Paddle and Fin Network before talking kayaks, but tonight we'll talk a little bit more outdoors in general. We'll talk hunting, fishing, a little bit of everything.
Yeah, definitely.
So how you been?
Good, yeah. Just getting out fishing as much as I can right now. A little bit of spring turkey, not too much this year. But yeah, other than that, not too much.
Kittle's probably still a little too young for the fishing, hey?
Yeah, a little bit. She's 16 months now, so she's starting to walk and do all that. But we got her out trout fishing once early season, so that was good.
Nice.
But yeah, she's getting out now, so
nice.
A couple more months and she'll be right out there with me. So
a couple more years and she'll be asking you to go, and then,
exactly.
And then it's going to get real. Then it'll get real fun there for a little.
Exactly.
Well, that's good, man. So let's talk fall. Let's recap the 2020 season. I got you out for your first time on a waterfall goose hunt. We went field hunting.
Yep.
It was one of them early season hunts. If you're a goose hunter, you've been out there before. It was hot. It was humid. But in all my years, those mosquitoes were something else. They were
unbelievable how bad those mosquitoes were. I've never been in something like that before. That was crazy.
So I have a bad habit. When I get out of my truck and I'm getting all my decoys ready and all that, I'll just leave the driver's door open. And I left the door open like normal. I walk to the back and I start pulling decoys out, and all of a sudden I'm like, there's a lot of mosquitoes here. And I'm like, wow, there's really a lot of mosquitoes here. All of a sudden I couldn't focus anymore on trying to get decoys out of my truck. I was walking in circles this is crazy. So I kicked all my decoys, closed the tailgate, and jumped back in my truck, and there was hundreds in my truck. Hundreds. It was out of control. My truck sounded like a ball full of bumblebees. I wound up leaving all my decoys in the parking lot. I rolled all the windows down, and I was driving up and down. We were on the side of a county highway, driving up and down there at 60 miles an hour, just turning around, going back and forth, trying to get these mosquitoes. It was out of control. It was nuts.
Yeah. I remember pulling up and you messaged me. You're like, is that you? I'm like, yeah. You're like, don't get out of your truck. We're not getting out till the last second. Unless anybody shows up, we're waiting because it's horrible. And you were not wrong. It was crazy how bad they were.
I've never seen anything like that before. I've been in tons of different hunting areas, from swamps to marshes to fields to corn to everything. Yeah. I've never had mosquitoes like that.
No. And we went duck hunting, what was it, a month after that?
Yeah.
Month and a half in the marsh, where you would think mosquitoes would be horrible, and there's none there, but middle of a cornfield, and they were just everywhere.
Yeah, that was bad. I mean,
yeah.
And I forgot bug spray. Thankfully, you had some, or that would have been even worse.
That's one thing. I always keep a can of bug spray in the truck. It's a couple a year I'll go through, but it always just sits in my truck, whether for fishing, hunting, anything like that. It just sits in the door of my truck. So.
Yeah, that's a staple. That's now in my truck, along with sunscreen. I always keep a small thing of sunscreen in there as well.
I need to put that in there, yeah.
Otherwise, I come home looking more red than I left, and it's just not good.
Yep.
But yeah, that hunt was a fun hunt. Is slow. We did see quite a bit of birds, but they wanted nothing to do with the field we were in. Now, for some background to everyone else out there, we were hunting a public field that had already been pressured quite a bit during that early season. There was a lot of shell casings around, like a lot of leftover hulls, which we wound up picking up quite a few actually.
Yep.
But there was a lot of pressure from goose hunters, and then also a lot of dove hunters that were out in that field. So
yeah,
the birds we did get to work, they got close to, I could turn flocks that they were pretty call receptive, and I'd get flocks to turn, but then like they'd get close to that field and they could just tell there was that memory there. And they're like, yep, nope, we're going to turn.
Yeah.
So that was a little disappointing. I was really hoping to get some birds to really work for you on your first time. We did have that one flock work really, really well though, but they were right at that 55-yard mark, and they got to that point and they're like, yep, nope, see you later.
Yeah.
Oh, I was so close. I'm like, oh, you guys are killing me.
Yeah. And like, I'm not a bird hunter. I've never really been. So like my shotgun skills are minimal to say the least. So that, even those like 30-yard shots with bird hunting with a shotgun, I'm just like not comfortable. So it's like one of those things to where it definitely, yeah, it's tough when they're pushing out there, and then I'm inexperienced to say the least of bird hunting. So
I let a lot of birds go that a lot of other people I've hunted with will actually shoot at. I really, to me, I'm well past just let's pound up limits. I want straps of green heads. I'm well past that stage in my. I'm really out there for more of an experience. Like an overall experience is what I really shoot for. That's what I want for my hunting every trip. I want a really good, memorable experience.
Yeah.
And killing birds isn't like need that for me.
Yeah. And just seeing those birds work, and like, like it's one of those things too. Like everybody says, like, oh, you're always learning from each experience. Like. Seeing those birds work and then having them work back, and like, even when we didn't get them to commit, like you look at your setup, you look at, your calling, your decoys, what you could have done different possibly. And that is, it's all part of the game. So for me too, it's like, I enjoy that learning experience more.
Sure. And it was all new to you.
Yeah. So getting out there and just seeing those, and, looking back on it, be like, oh, what could we have done different with the decoys? Where we were sitting, stuff like that. So, and
we did change the setup. We did, after we just saw first couple of groups, we tried to move where we were in the corn. We probably could have played that field a little better after looking at it. I scouted it from the road. I didn't actually walk in it. I should have probably done that. I should have done that. I should have walked in the field and really got a much better look at it to know where we were going to set up. But that wound up kind of being a last minute type deal too, because I didn't exactly know where we were going to go. Yeah. Like all other waterfowl hunting, it's like, where are we going today? I don't know. We found birds here, here, and here. Okay, let's pick one.
Yep.
But then later on, like you had said, we got you out on your first duck hunt too with the kayaks.
Yeah, that was fun too. Except for the falling in part in the morning. That was great.
Ooh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. I decided, so when we were paddling in, I was standing up just like paddling in or whatever, and I could feel on the bottom that it was like rocky, gravelly surface. So I'm like, okay, great. So like we get along the reeds, and me not thinking that, oh, the bottom surface could change. So I'm 6'5", I'm standing up in my kayak, and instead of just sitting down and, like leaning over the side of the boat, I have an Frontier 12, so it's plenty stable to do everything like that. I decided that I was just going to step off of it standing up. So I step off into the mud, sink all the way up to my knee, and then basically just like fall in the water, which was fine this time. I'm glad I did it this time, because it was like 70 something degrees that day,
it was warm, because that was the beginning.
So warm.
Because that wasn't early teal. That was that might have been opening weekend or the weekend right after opening weekend. It was early in the season.
It was early, and it was like 80 degrees. So like I was in just my like Orvis, like breathable waders, and I had a sweatshirt, and I was perfectly fine. So luckily it was warm, and I learned my lesson not to do that ever again, because I can't, like, I would have been done if it was colder season or something like that. But
if we would have been
it was good.
If we would have been breaking ice to get out there and you fell in that, or you'd have been done.
I can't imagine. Like, I look back on that, I'm like, it's just one of those things where like you look back on it and you just laugh, but it's like, yeah, you'll never do that ever again.
Yeah, no, you won't just step right off your kayak into the marsh.
Yeah.
And it is really crazy how much deeper you see that quite a bit, how much deeper it is right along a cattail island than you do in other. I mean, I don't know why that is. You definitely get a difference in bottom. Like you definitely get more of a muck bottom by the cattails. But it was almost to the point in some of those spots you couldn't stand by the cattails.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But farther out, you had a harder bottom, which was like waist-ish deep.
Yeah. Yeah. And even like the spot that I checked when we were paddling, and I mean, it wasn't any deeper than like my paddle. So like, just not even thinking, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to step in and start setting up decoys and fall right in. So
I remember that.
No, other than that, it was good.
Because all of a sudden we couldn't see your headlamp, really.
Oh, man. Yeah. Yeah, that was fun. Got a little early morning swim.
That was a fun hunt, though. We saw we saw quite a bit of birds, and we had some birds work our decoys, and
yeah, you got one.
I did. That might have been the only bird we actually got that day. Yeah. Man, if you guys are listening thinking I'm like this great waterfall hunter, I'm not. I mean, I'll have good hunts here and there, but for the most part, my breakfast is really better than my duck killing abilities.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the same with me. It's hunting for me. I'm definitely like I really, really enjoy it. But for me, it's more of just like the experience of getting out and like enjoying stuff and seeing stuff versus like the actual killing part.
Right.
Like, I know so many hunters who put in so much, like it's a year thing for them, especially like deer hunting and stuff. And for me, like I just have so many other hobbies that I can't put in that time for hunting. So like it definitely, I just like enjoy getting out and doing whatever. And that's like, for the first time duck hunting and goose hunting, like doing those little things like that, like the first times out, I enjoy that more than, a lot of things. So
that's what I'm really the same way too. I do a lot of different outdoor stuff, from fly fishing to regular fishing to dog training in the off season, and then I really, really focus hard in fall on upland hunting with a splash of like waterfall hunting, because that's really not my primary focus. And then behind all that then is even deer hunting. I get out when I can. Yeah. And then it's back to bird hunting for upland birds, and then ice fishing's here, and then during ice fishing season I cross country ski, and it's just like this crazy anything that's outdoors I just kind of suck it in. So it's I know exactly what you mean. I can't focus all year on deer hunting. I can't do like the food plots and then always out there checking trail cameras and clearing shooting lanes and hanging stands. And for people that do it, that's awesome.
Oh, it's phenomenal. Like, especially like the public land hunters that I see that are like, literally like they're checking, public land from, it seems like May till whenever, like they're constantly on it. So it's awesome. I can't put in that time for it. Like, I'm lucky that I'm able to deer hunt on private land, like my in-laws own land and stuff like that. So I'm fortunate enough, but like, so those guys that are getting out there, like public land hunting and succeeding and stuff, like hats off to you guys, because man, like that is work. I can't, it is amazing.
It is a lot of work, especially for it's one thing to go out on public land, find some good deer trails and just set up on them. And you might get lucky, you might not get lucky, you might take some, but for the guys that are actually out there scouting it hard, they're out there, they're setting up trail cameras on public land. They're out there in spring looking for sheds. They're out there in winter checking deer trails and marking deer trails so they can come back. And they're out there in summer to see how it's looking. I mean, for the guys that are out there really hitting it hard, that's all. I give you guys all the props in the world, because I'm way too ADD to do that.
Oh yeah, and like the problem with fall too is that like just like everything gets good. That it's like so hard. Like fishing's so good. Like the deer hunting gets good. Bird hunting gets really good. So fall for me is like my favorite time, but it's just so hard. Of like, what do you do in 2 days on the weekend or 3 days or whatever? So.
And that is why I save almost every vacation day I can, other than a handful of camping trips I do with my wife in the summer.
Yeah.
but we don't normally do many week-long things or anything like that. And that's actually one thing that's been good with COVID is I've actually, like, I went to Florida this spring, did some fishing. I was able to work 2 days remote, so it only took 3 days of vacations to go for a whole week.
Yep. Yep.
And I'll still be able to use that because we've been able to prove, while I can't do my job full-time remote, I could. It just had a whole bunch of complications.
Yeah.
To take a week off, but to work 2 or 3 days during that week remote does work.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yep. And that's how for me too. Like last summer with COVID, we weren't allowed to use any vacation time, but we were still building it up. So unfortunately, I had I almost had 200 hours of vacation saved up, but I just got a new job that I couldn't pass up. So I pretty much lost most of that. So I was like,
they didn't have to pay it out? You didn't get a nice little...
They paid out half of it.
All right, so
it works, but like
sure.
That vacation time was like, I got some, so like we're still going on vacations this summer and stuff like that, but I was like, oh, like I'm planning on, a couple of weeks during the summer and then, 2 straight weeks over the fall of,
Right.
straight deer hunting and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
a little less deer hunting this fall, but that'll be all right.
That was like 4 weeks of vacation right there. That's
Yeah.
a lot of vacation. Let's take a month. Let's take off all of October and do everything you want to do.
So a little more hunting on the weekends, which is fine.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, like you said, I'm also spoiled that I have private land, so it isn't as bad hunting on the weekends for us. I mean, now when I'm out duck hunting, though, I mean, you were out in the marsh. It wasn't that busy the day we were out there, and that's a smaller marsh. But I mean, some of the places I'll go, I mean, it can be a zoo. It can really be a zoo on the weekends. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Like those are like come fall is the time I kind of wish I worked like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, like 3/12s or something, and head off Monday through Thursday.
Yeah.
That's the only time. That's the only time of year I wish I could switch my schedule to that. Like in October and November, I could work 3/12s Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Yeah, I'd be a happy man.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, we were touch base on you with your deer hunting. You got your first buck this year with a bow.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, and that actually kind of leads into the vacation time too.
So, beautiful.
Yeah.
Segue. Look at that. We're professional.
Yeah. So it was the first 2 weeks in November, I had off completely. So I was gonna hunt straight through that, like straight through the first 2 weeks. So the 31st was the Saturday. So where my stand was for that morning, they had actually come up. So we had given permission for them to make a snowmobile trail that came up through our land, basically.
Sure.
So they came through and it was probably 50 yards below my stand. And when they made a snowmobile trail, they made a snowmobile trail. So they basically clear cut a 2-lane highway.
Sure.
Through the woods. So, and I mean, they took a week, heavy machinery, stuff like that. So I was like, like I have a few different stands set up through their land that I can hunt. But I was like, it's my first day of vacation. The wind's good for it. Like the wind was perfect for it. So I'm like, I'm just going to go sit there and, if I don't see anything, it's fine. Like I have 2 straight weeks of hunting. Like it's not a big deal if I don't see anything. Because I was like, they had machinery in there all week, people walking through there all week. Like, I was like, yeah, whatever. Like, I'm still gonna go out, but if I don't see anything, fine. So I got out real early in the morning, and the sun had just come up. Like it was coming up, and every hunter knows the sound of a doe, like it got spooked by something. I'm like, there's no way
a doe blowing at you.
Yeah, blowing. I was like, it was, maybe like 100 yards down below me. I'm like, the wind is blowing straight up in my face, like, and the deer's down below me. There's no way it winded me. So I'm like looking, I can hear her like blowing. I'm like, what is going on? So I look, here comes the buck up the snowmobile trail. So where the doe is bedding it's below me, and then the snowmobile trail where they cut, and then woods up to my stand. So this buck is literally walking back and forth on this snowmobile trail that they just cut, chasing this doe. So the doe would run up, about to cross the snowmobile trail, come up to me, and he'd run up and chase her back down. And then she would try to cut down below me, and he would run down and cut her back off. So for probably half an hour, these two chased this buck, chased this doe back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, running up and down the snowmobile trail that they just had cut. I'm sitting there like this, like at one point I'm like, they're just gonna, because where my stand is, it's kind of like halfway up a hill. Sure. And what seems to happen more often than not is they get down below me and then they just work up into the woods. So I'm like, this is not gonna happen. Like, and finally this doe came up to my right, still on the other side of the snowmobile trail. And she did, I'll never forget this. She did one of these like football like head fake moves where she like went down like she was going to go back down and then ran up. I'll never forget like watching, like she tried to like deke like the buck. So she does,
she's
this,
out
like,
there
little,
breaking ankles.
Yeah, it literally was like that. So she did this like break the buck's ankle move, and the buck kind of like went for it, and she ran right up past my stand, right underneath me. And this buck came, and at this point I was like, oh, this is not going to happen. So I wasn't like 100% ready. And this buck came and followed her right up underneath my stand, stopped 10 yards. And unfortunately, when I shot, I didn't take into consideration how close he was, and I actually spined him. But, you know, it's one of those things that happens. Loaded up another arrow quick and, you know, got him. And he was down within 30 seconds. I mean, he was dead. So within 30 seconds. So it's not my proudest shot ever, but it was one of those things where like it happened so quick that I was just like, grabbed another arrow, threw it in.
It took forever to happen, but it happened so fast.
Yeah.
Like you sat there and you watched it for 20 minutes, like this whole event playing out. And you're like,
crazy.
They're not going to come. They're not going to come. And all of a sudden it turned, and they're like, then it happened so quick. Like it's like how you're like not even ready for it.
Yeah.
Like, how wasn't I ready when I've been watching this for 20 minutes?
Exactly. And I mean, he was like 10 yards. So I put my pin on him, and and I haven't been archery hunting that long too. I've never really been an archery hunter until I met my wife, actually. Her family's big into archery.
Okay.
And they actually taught me how to shoot and everything. So I've only been doing it probably maybe like 7 years now.
Sure.
So, but the past maybe 3 or 4 years is when I really like got into it and really started to practice and stuff. So those, I keep my shots like 30 yards and under is like what I'm comfortable with. I'm starting to get to that 30 and 40 yard shooting, but like I'm still not 100% where I'd like to be. But it's all learning and practice and all that. But yeah, so he just came up so quick that I'm sure, and this is only my second deer that I've ever shot with a bow. I got a doe previously. So I'm sure when I shot that I either pulled it a little bit or something, but once I saw him go down quick, I slapped in another arrow and, put one right through his rib cage, and he was done within, a couple of seconds. So
yeah, I mean, everyone makes a bad shot here and there, and that's not even that bad of a shot. Cause I mean, I hit a deer low in the brisket, which I never recovered, and I tracked blood for a while. That one hurt. I rushed. That was on me. Like looking back, I knew it. I rushed the shot. I made quite a few mistakes on that hunt. I shouldn't have shot where I did and when I did. And it was a really, really nice buck too. And it wasn't that far away. Yeah. My scenario was I had a doe and with a buck right on it walk out from my left. And the buck saw me the whole time, but the doe was hot and the doe didn't. Yeah. So the buck kept watching me, but the doe never saw me. So the buck would kind of like walk away a little bit. but then the doe kept coming and he wouldn't leave the doe, but he knew something was wrong. So it was really hard for me to get like a good position. And then the doe picked its head up, and then the doe saw me quick. And I'm like, I've got seconds here to take a shot, and I shouldn't have taken the shot, but I took it, and I pulled it, and I shot low. And I did have the buck on trail camera 3 weeks later, and it wasn't limping or anything. So, I mean, I know I hit low in the brisket from the hair and the blood.
Yeah.
But it still was one of those things where I really was like, A, I made a bad shot, which really, really hurt.
Yeah.
B, that was a gorgeous buck, and that would have been on the wall for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, like you said, like it happened. It doesn't matter how long you hunt for, like it's going to happen to you eventually. And like, you just have to kind of come to terms with, at some point, more than likely you're going to make a bad shot, and you learn from it, and you just, you keep practicing. So yeah, it happens, but I got him. He was probably dead quicker than if I would have just,
right,
threw one right through his lungs right away. Like, cause he dropped, and then I threw one right. I think I got lower lungs and then heart too. I mean, so he was done within, 30 seconds maybe. So, look back on it, and definitely could have made a better shot, but it wasn't
it wasn't a terrible shot.
No.
I mean, that's a better shot than, let's say, liver, where you have to back out and then it's hours. I mean, as hunters, and I know myself, but I'm sure I can speak for you. I'm like, we strive to make the most ethical possible shot. I mean, sometimes things happen, and I'll be honest, those things eat at me. Like,
100%.
I mean, I've lost I've shot woodcock before, and there's one in particular I remember my dog and I looked for forever, like for 45, and afterwards I actually stopped hunting. Like, I'm like, all right, we're done. Like it ruined the day for me.
Mm-hmm.
My only thought is it got hung up in a tree when it came down, because we just couldn't find it. And I did look up, but probably not as much as I should have.
Yeah.
But that's just a guess, because I have no idea.
Yeah.
I watched it fall. Like, I know I hit it.
Yeah.
And that was with my lab, and I had 100% confidence in that dog. I mean, he would have found that bird. Like, I saw him find, like, a buddy of mine shot a grouse that sailed into a pine swamp up in the Northwoods, and he found that bird buried underneath like a pine tree that occurred. Like, I mean, I had 100, like my Griff. I mean, I rescued her at an older age. She just doesn't have the experience, and she'll never get it because she's starting so old.
Yeah.
So her, I could maybe see like, she missed it. Like, she just couldn't find it. She didn't have, but him, no way. Like, he would have found it. So that one hurt.
Yeah.
Like, that was one of those ones where it's like, this is what I don't enjoy about this.
Yep. But you got to think, like, it sucks for like those, those couple of times but for how much, because for me, like, I'm pretty much out there to like get meat. Like, I hunt, for a good buck or whatever, but for me, like, I want to eat whatever I get. So, yes, like, the bad shots happen, but how many, because a deer feeds my family basically for a year.
Right.
So, how many cows or whatever are we not killing for just that one deer and stuff like that. So for me, it kind of not equals out, but it happens.
I know exactly.
And
I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. So it was learning experience, and like too, it's crazy too, because with my bow before that hunt, so it was, what was it? It was like 3 days before the hunt. I was shooting a drop away rest.
Okay.
And for me, I practice all season. So I practice, because I'm lucky enough that my basement is like 10 yards.
Oh, nice.
Back to front. So I'll come down, like, even during hunting season, I'll just, shoot a couple to make sure, just practice my release, do that stuff. I was shooting a drop away rest. And this was like 3 days before I had these 2 weeks planned. So I was like super excited. I noticed my like arrows were coming out of it funky. Like, it was acting really weird. And I looked on my fletchings, and I had 2 black marks on my fletchings. And I found out my drop away wasn't dropping away every time.
Interesting.
like 3 days before. So I'm like, oh no, like what do I do now? So luckily, where I take my bow, they got me in right away, and I was like, so from now on I shoot standard broadheads and whisker biscuit rests because I'm not relying on any
Sure.
mechanical stuff anymore on my bow. Because after that I was like, man, like if I would have been sitting and had to shoot and not really noticed that. So I took two things away from that: is I'm not shooting anything mechanical on my bow anymore, and I'm practicing during season, which I don't think a lot of people, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think a lot of people take advantage of like shooting throughout your season. Like people
Sure.
practice, and then it seems like you practice up until, middle of October, and then it's just hunting, hunting, hunting.
Right.
I think if more people, took the time to just shoot your bow every once in a while. I know a lot of times, like I'll even bring a target with me out to the woods and just, shoot a couple from the truck really quick, just to
Sure.
make sure, I'm, my sighter on, I didn't bump anything getting out of the stand the night before. So, yeah, I think that's a big thing for me too, is just like keep practicing through the season too. It doesn't take long to shoot, 2 or 3 arrows, and
No,
it
not at
builds
all.
confidence too.
Especially if you have a place to do it. That was where I
Yep.
always struggled. That's why I really am not huge into bow hunting.
Yeah.
I don't have a good place to do it. My basement's 6 yards. I have
Yep.
7. I'm 7. I took the rangefinder to it one night,
Yep.
and it's just not long enough for me to have any type of quality type
Yeah.
of shooting experience.
Yep.
I can't shoot in my outside. I can't shoot outside. It's not even an option in the subdivision I live. And
Yep.
so between different friends, or the closest public ground where I would feel confident, but no one's going to actually complain about me target shooting a bow, it's about a 30-minute drive
And
each
yeah,
way.
that's so tough because archery takes so much practice. Like you
Right.
constantly have to do it. And like you said too, like you want to make the most ethical kill, but if you're not confident in it, like it's not worth, risking that shot on that deer if you're not 100% confident that you can, and obviously mistakes are going to happen and everything. But yeah, luckily enough for me, my in-laws live right outside of town and they own some land. So I'm able to shoot 40, 50, 60, 70
Sure.
yards or whatever. So it's a 2-minute drive for me. So I'm able to get out and practice at longer distances too. So.
See, and that's really not, that's where it really helps. I mean,
Yep.
if I had a spot where I could go, let's say once a week and go shoot 40, 50, 60 yards,
Yeah.
but then sit in my basement, and even if I'm only shooting 7 yards, I'm still building the muscle memory. I'm still building the muscle mass. I'm still working on all of my body conditioning.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm not working on like the accuracy really per se. But if I could go once a week to really hammer and tune in that accuracy, it wouldn't be so bad.
Yeah.
But being that I can't even really get that through, I just don't have enough time to do it.
Yep, exactly. And like for me, when I'm shooting in my basement, it's literally I'm just working on my release.
Right.
I'm aiming obviously, but like I'm not really focusing on where I hit. It's more of just, feeling that trigger, really, really concentrating on my release. So that's where I think a lot of people too could, like, if you have the space to do it, like just work on your release. Like it doesn't hurt to really just focus on, making an 80-yard shot is awesome or whatever on a target, or 90 or whatever. But especially for me, like, because I am still fairly new to this, like just getting a constant release for me is really important.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's the foundations. You need to, you have to really focus on the fundamentals, and you can do that at 7 yards or 10 yards in your basement. You really can.
Yep.
I just never, even with working on that, like I'd come down and I'd normally shoot 5 arrows a night. That's kind of what I did. I did 5 arrows every single night, along with some, like I'd draw, I'd hold, and then I'd let it down easy, just like you would like in hunting, working on those muscles and things like that. And I really do some longer extended hold times as well, like you would wind up at a tree, so. But without having that longer shooting opportunities, I just didn't feel comfortable anymore going out with my bow.
Yep. Getting those fundamentals down, great. Getting your anchor point, working on that muscle memory is great too. But like you said, you do need to still go out and shoot at distance though.
Right. That is actually, I know it's a big controversy in Wisconsin, but I have a crossbow because of that. I mean, I know some
100%.
people don't agree with it. I'm more of a fan of whatever you feel is the most ethical way to harvest your game. And I can go out and shoot my crossbow, sight it in, and then I can shoot that once a month and know I'm still 100% confident in it. And
100%.
For the 2 to 3 times I actually get out during archery season, it works for me perfectly.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, and even with the crossbow too, because like, it's everybody thinks like a crossbow is a slam dunk for some reason.
No,
and it is not. Like last year, my father-in-law shot a buck. It basically ran up to him and he shot it at like 15 yards with a crossbow, and he hit it maybe a quarter of an inch and got one lung, but didn't get a second one. And we tracked that thing for, I don't know how many, 2 hours or something like that. Finally, we saw it run up and we backed out and then came back and it had died where we last saw it fall. But crossbows are not a slam dunk, but it definitely is one of those things where you don't need that muscle memory. It's a scope with it. So
exactly. You need to still, like, if you have trigger control, I mean, you still have buck fever. I mean, it's still an arrow being thrown by a string. So
exactly,
I don't shoot more than 40 yards with it.
No,
I don't. Especially where I hunt. There's only one spot, one shooting lane I can think of that I'd even shoot to 40. Most of my lanes are 25 max because I can't guarantee after 25 there's not a twig I can't see that's going to deflect the arrow. And even with a crossbow or even new compound bows with 300 feet per second.
Oh yeah.
Even a twig can change the trajectory enough to make a good shot a bad shot.
No, I'm all for like people having crossbows. Like, to be honest, I'm all for it, because if people want to go out and enjoy archery season, because it is a great, like, if I didn't because I was always a gun hunter. Like, that's pretty much all I did for hunting was we'd go out and, gun hunt, and it was good. Like, it's one of those things that you grow up in Wisconsin, like everybody kind of does it.
There's a lot of traditions there. A lot of,
exactly. Yeah. But like, if you want to go out and experience, like the rut, that archery, that, late October, early November hunting, but don't have the time or, the patience to put into like learning how to shoot a compound, a crossbow is a great way to get into it. Like, it is a great way to get into it. And they're really not that expensive either.
No, I still feel, and I do, you have to still have confidence. You still need to go out and shoot it. You can't just sight it in and say, good enough, and never touch it again. I don't agree with that. I mean, I say the same thing with deer rifles too. I shoot my rifle a couple times a year. I make sure it's always sighted in, things like that. I might not shoot it this much this year just because ammo's a little hard to find, I've been told. I haven't looked because I'm picky when I buy ammo. I use Hornady, and I use a specific type of Hornady, and I will buy 5 or 6 boxes from the same lot. Because I just like being like that picky on it. So I still have 3 boxes or 4 boxes, and that'll last me a long time. But I still like to definitely get out and shoot, and like even like with the crossbow, because I mean it's trigger control and it's a scope. I mean, you can roll that all the way back to a 22. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, you can just shoot your crossbow, which is free and doesn't even need ammo.
Exactly. And like, you still have to do your diligence as a hunter, like with everything. Like, you're shotgun hunters, like you're going to go out and practice on clays or do whatever. Like, you still have to do your diligence, but it's a lot less of a learning curve, I guess, with a crossbow versus a compound.
Agreed.
So,
and it's less continual. Like, you don't have to shoot every single day. I mean, I give all the credits to the world for guys that compound hunt. My next purchase will be a recurve, actually, and I'll go actually traditional. That's where I'm actually going next. I'm going to be buying one here probably this month. That's my plan. And May is over, so we'll say June. But I'm going to start with using it for bow fishing to really get the muscle build up and really work on that instinct style of shooting with no sights. Because that way there I can use it all summer long, bow fishing. and transition in fall to deer hunting with it, knowing I'm not going to take more than a 10-yard shot.
Yep.
So I will practice at 7 in my basement because 3 yards isn't going to affect me very much.
Yeah. And like I'd love to get one of those and like go practice, like get a hang of it, and maybe do like some small game hunting with like a recurve. Like do some rabbit hunting in the winter with a recurve or something like that. I think would be really fun.
Yeah, I'm excited. It'll be fun. I'm gonna get all set up. My first guest ever on the Feather and Fur was actually Jonathan Karch with Three Rivers Archery.
Okay.
So I know him through family. So I've been talking to him since then, of course, and we're gonna get myself all set up with a nice Three Rivers Archery setup, and it'll be awesome. Good because I'm actually gonna set up my new Canoe Unlimited for bow fishing.
Ooh, okay.
That's for it's going to be my tournament fishing boat for bass fishing on the weeknight Madison chain, because there's a Madison wake night Madison tournament now. I did one last year in bass boats. This year now there's a kayak option, which I'm going to focus on that.
Nice.
But I'm going to make it so the front has a removable light setup, and then on weekends when I want to go out and just goof around and do something different, I'm going to have that set up with LED lights and use my lithium battery and my mud motor to go out there, because I got the mud motor. So I'll go out there and I'll cruise back into the marshes. Yeah. And then I'll just shut her down, and then I'll push pull around, and I'll sit out there with the recurve. And my goal is to slam some carp with a recurve and kayak.
Especially Madison too. There's so many like little marshes and stuff like that if you can get back into, it's just like.
Oh yeah, not even that. I mean, even the chain. There's just so many. There's so many big carp on the Madison chain. Yeah. If you go out on a relatively calm night, like right now, I really wish I had it right now because the clarity out there is phenomenal.
Early season like this is just crazy. I don't know how many times we've been out there muskie fishing and just like, 40-pound carp comes swimming by. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it makes you think, like if you didn't mind the mess in the boat, it makes you wish you just had a bow right on you, just like, let me grab that real quick. But yeah, I'm excited to get the kayak set up for that. I think that'll be fun.
Yeah.
It'll also help. It'll also help with that muscle memory rolling into fall, and I do want to get out a couple times with it. I really do. There's some, like I have private land I can hunt, but there's a couple of spots I know on public land that will just be a different and unique experience. Yeah. Like the two spots I'm thinking about, like right now, like I would need to use my kayak to get to them.
Yeah.
So it's that whole experience of, okay, I got to use my kayak to get there. I want to do it with the recurve. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I'm not out there just like I said, I'm chasing an experience there.
Yep. It's the trial and error, and like, it's that. Yeah. I've always wanted to like do some backwater, like Wisconsin River, like deer hunting with the kayak or something like that. Because there's just so much public land along the Wisconsin, so many marshes and backwaters that I wanted to do that sometimes. But it's also hard to like be like, I have 6 trail cameras set up on private land. I know exactly what's out there. It's hard to spend like a weekend of like exploring public. So
I know. That's why I said I'm chasing it for the experience, and I'm not trying to feel like you're right though. But on the public land, I'm on the private land. I mean, I have my trail cameras. I'm out there enough, I haven't been the past couple seasons, but I did hit it hard for a couple of years, and I know which way the deer come from normally.
Yeah.
Especially because of the trail cameras. But besides that, I know the trails well enough, like by heart now.
Yeah.
I can kind of be like, well, we come over this hill, odds are there's going to be a doe right down there. And I've called it more than one time, and there's been a doe right there.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. Like, you're not guaranteed in deer. As easy as I'm like, oh, there's a deer right there. It never works out that way. I mean, I was very thankful to get a doe during gun season. Yeah. Like, it was just the previous year I was done within 10 minutes, 20 minutes after opening. Yeah. I got that buck that's right behind me right there.
Okay. Nice.
But this past season, I didn't see many deer. Yeah. And it was but it was a great season. It was a great season. My niece shot her first buck, her first deer, and she was holding out for a buck. So she got her first deer ever, which is really cool because she got it because she used her great grandmother's .35 Remington rifle.
Oh, that's
so. I mean,
awesome.
that's super cool. Like, and she gets it too. She's like, this is like my great grandma's gun, and this is my first deer. Like, she was super excited about it. So she got her first buck. It was 7. I think it was a small 7-pointer, but it was great. It was awesome.
That's awesome.
It was a perfect shot, and like just like watching the emotions in her was great. Like it was like it was like because it was what I feel.
Yep.
Because you have that huge high, but then you also have that low, like this creature's beautiful, and I just took its life. Like it's a weird mix of emotions you feel when you harvest an animal. It really is.
Yep. Especially something like a deer too, where it's like, it's a weird like feeling of like, because it's such a big animal, like
right.
Hunting an elk or something. Like I can't imagine that. Like I want to go and do that at some point. Like that's the next kind of like, because I do spend more of my vacation times like fishing rather than hunting too, because I always consider myself like a fisherman before a hunting enthusiast. But like I do want to, before I get too old, like I do want to go and do the elk thing, and I want to do it like the hiking, like the not the quote unquote right way, but like, you know, like put in the work and do it versus just like, oh, going and sitting over like a mud hole or something like that. Like I want to go and like,
you want to go and spot and stalk. You want to go out there. You want to get out there. You want to hike ridge lines, grab the glass.
Yep.
I know exactly what you mean.
We might not get one kind of thing. Like if it does work out, it'll be awesome. But you know, you're doing it the hard way, and it might not work out. Like that's the kind of thing that I want to do it. So like I want to do it too before I get too old. So that's the next thing is like I want to go out and do the elk hunting. But like I can't imagine like walking up to something like that after you know, like you harvest it and everything. Like a deer is emotional enough. I can't imagine like 100-pound, you know, hundreds of pounds of elk, you know, meat and stuff like that. Like it's just crazy. So
yeah, I haven't shot an. I mean, I haven't shot an elk. I haven't been out west. I haven't shot a moose or anything like that. But I know exactly what you mean. Like those bigger creatures are just a little more magnificent.
Yeah.
And majestic, and they just hit a little differently.
Yeah. It's like, but like saying that now too. Like, what was it last? Not like this previous spring, but the one before I got my first tom turkey, and like that was weird too. But like it was like my first solo like turkey hunt. I did it all on my own kind of thing. So like that was a weird kind of emotional thing too. So I think it kind of just as a hunter, like you kind of experience it all like for a lot of different things. So all the animals that you get. So.
And I was talking to my niece about that too, and we were talking about those feelings, and I jokingly told her, but I'm like, this just reminds me I'm not a serial killer.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's okay to have like to feel some remorse about it. It is.
Yeah.
Like I do.
Definitely.
I mean, it's all part of that experience. It really is.
Yep. And like, it's good too, because like you know you feel those things, but then you realize like you harvest this animal like. For us, we process basically all of it ourselves. Like, you know, you see it from that time it's in the field to the time that it's on your plate. Like, we make all of our own brats. We do, you know, sausage, you know, all that stuff. So, like, it's from the time that you take it to the time that it's on your plate, you're, like, involved with all of it. So I think that's, like, really important, too, is, like, that whole, like, being involved in the whole experience is really something, too.
There's something about how I've always said it is like there's something about that the only other hands that have touched it are God's.
Yep. Yeah.
And whether you believe in God or not, that's here nor there. But I mean, really, at the end of the day, no one else has touched that deer but you. Especially if you process it yourself and you make your own brats, or maybe a family member that's helped you, but no one else. Like you know what exactly that meat is. You know it was wild. You know it wasn't pumped full of any type of chemicals or anything other than like what it might have eaten on the ground, which I guess there's always a possibility. But and I know there's ethical farming out there, and I know there's ethical ranching, and I'm 100%. Not saying anything against that. But now I would say the exact same thing if I raised my own cattle and I knew the only person that touched it was me. There's just something different because you have a different experience when you were the one to harvest the animal, you processed the animal, you made food out of the animal, and then it's the whole circle. There's just something different about that.
And it's that that work that you put into it too, of like, you know, I don't put in to be honest, like I don't put in like as much hunting work as I probably should, but like putting in food plots, you know, planning out your
Right.
hunt, sitting in the cold, getting up at 4 a.m, you know, like it's the whole thing of then it finally all coming together. It's just
Sure.
like, it's something that, because I always say like every single year I'm going musky fishing till end of October. Like I'm musky fishing till end of October, and then I'll start hunting. Like it's fine. Like I'll have plenty of time. Middle of October rolls around, and I'm sitting in the tree stand every single year, because there's something, I don't know, there's just something about once fall hits that it's a very short time.
It's a short window. It
It's
really
a really
is.
short window. So it's like, I always tell myself, like, I'm waiting. I'm musky fishing till end of October this year. I'm doing it. October 15th or whenever, and I'm in the tree stand. Last year I hunted from September all the way to October 31st. Like I was out there opening weekend, every weekend till the 31st. It was just one of those things where I'm like, it came down to fall. I was like, I want to go hunting. So
Right.
I was out there hunting. So this year we'll see,
and that's also something like I've noticed too, because I've had people like, oh, the smallmouth bite is fire right now. And I'm like, and you're out duck hunting. I'm like, do you know how many days a year I get to duck hunt?
Yep.
60.
Yep.
Well, plus a 10-day early teal season now. But anyways, the federal government only allows me 60 days to hunt those ducks in Wisconsin.
Yep.
I get to fish 365 days a year in Wisconsin.
Yep.
Because there's some rivers are open all year round.
Yep.
Between ice fishing, open water fishing. Now we have the catch and release bass season. Panfish is always in season. I'm like, I can fish all year round.
Yep.
I hunt ducks for 60 days a year. That's it. And grouse season's even shorter. No, grouse season's longer. But grouse season's a farther drive, and I don't get to do it as often. So it's like, once September comes, September 1st, it's game over. And my wife laughs about it too, because I'm like, I get 60 days to do this. I'm like, I cross country ski with her in the winter. I make sure to get out with her in winter for that. We get out camping. We do a lot of recreational paddling. Like we do a lot of recreational kayak trips. We've been hanging out a ton on the Wisconsin River now on weekends rather than me going and fishing. We've been taking river trips and hanging out on sandbars. I'm like, I'll give you spring, fall, and winter, or spring, summer, and winter. I'll do some of my own stuff, but I'll give you a ton of time. But come fall, if you're not coming hunting with me, we're not seeing each other. It's just the way it is.
And like you know, like you say those 60 days you have too, and like out of how many of those 60 days is it really good too?
Well, not only that, but I still work a full-time job.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's 8 weekends. 8 weekends is all it is. 16 days is all I can theoretically actually hunt unless I take vacation.
Exactly.
And that's if I don't, and there's at least one, if not 2 weekends gone right away for grouse camp.
Yep.
Because I do that in October, which is over the duck season. And then depending on how deer hunting falls and the seasons fall, that loses a couple bit there. I mean, it's not like I hunt all 8 weekends. It doesn't even work that way.
Yep. And that's why when I shot my deer on the 31st, I was like, he came by, I'm like, there's no way I'm passing him up because it's my first buck. But I also have 2 weeks of vacation. It's the 31st. It's literally before, like, it's right as rut is going. I'm like, I can't pass this deer up. Like he's on my wall. Like he's big enough to put on my wall. Like he's not a mega giant or anything, but he's my first buck and he's like good enough to go on the wall. So he's on my wall. But I'm like, man, now I got 2 weeks. I've just shot my deer before the best 2 weeks of deer hunting, basically. But
so what'd you do for those 2 weeks?
But it's like, I think.
Did you get any late fishing then?
I fished a little bit, and I think I worked the second week. I was like, I'm just going to go back to work. So I think I took a week off and then just went back to work. So, But yeah, I did a little bit of musky fishing, I think. So we'll see. This year, I told myself again this year that I'm going to musky fish more. But we're getting the boat. So I think.
Right, you are getting the boat. That'll help.
Yep, I think that's going to.
When you take delivery, that's got to be coming up soon.
Oh, that is Saturday. We're driving up to get it.
Nice.
It just got delivered. I I actually talked to the guy today, so it got delivered Wednesday. They unwrapped it and found out that it didn't have any seats. So they called up Lund quick, and Lund was actually able to deliver them seats. So they're finishing it up tomorrow morning, and it's going to be ready Saturday. So we're driving up to get it Saturday. So
Do you have electronics? Do you have a trolling motor?
Yep,
You got lucky.
that's going to be in there. Yeah, luckily they had a 9, so it's going to have a Helix 9 on the bow. It's a Lund 1650 angler, so tiller. So it's going to have a Helix 9 on the bow, or on the console, and then a Tarova, 80-pound Tarova with all the goodies up front. So
nice.
Yeah, it's fairly basic, but it's one of those things, like, we make summer trips up north so much that now the kid's getting a little bit older, and my wife wants to get out and stuff like that. So kayaks are great. I went out in mine 3 or 4 times already this year, but we need something for that little bit of bigger water if somebody ever wants to come or whatever. So
I love kayaks. I mean, I'm on the new canoe team. I love kayaks. I don't see myself not owning a boat, though.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just times that, like I said, we've already done 2 Wisconsin river trips already, just weekend day trips. And I sold the Ranger, and I actually have an Excel duck boat now with a mud motor because I wanted something I could run rivers. I'd love to buy Ranger, and the only way I can describe this to anybody is that was a scalpel, and now I have a Swiss Army knife. My Ranger was phenomenal, and it was a great bass fishing boat, but I wouldn't use it duck hunting because it was too pretty. I used it once on the Wisconsin River and got it so beached, I was in ankle deep of water. It just didn't work out well. The boat was fine, but it was fine that time. I'm like, I need something that I can run on this river safely. So I went to an Excel F4 with a 37 horse gator tail mud motor, and I thought about it for a long time. I'm like, I love bass fishing, and I can still bass fish out of this boat.
Yeah.
But what I love even more is what I experience in fall, and that's that peace and tranquility of the woods and of the water duck hunting and those early mornings. And it really comes down to the fact I don't like people. and I do, but I don't. Like the Madison chain for fishing is just always so busy, and I'm like, how do I get away from the crowds? I'm like, the Wisconsin River, it takes me just as long to get to as the Madison chain. And I'm like, I'll just run upriver, and there's some phenomenal smallmouth fishing on the Wisconsin.
People don't realize how good of smallmouth fishing is on the lower Wisconsin. I tell people every time I go out there, and I've been fishing from shore a few times this spring already, and the size has just been phenomenal. I'm doing a 16-inch average on my smallmouth right now. And
that's awesome.
I've had 2 close to pushing 18, 19 inches already.
And they're fat and they're strong. They just fight different. That river's got enough current, so you're actually it's a river fish. I mean, it's a river smallie.
And people just don't realize like you said too, the accessibility, for kayaks and stuff like that, it's fine, but getting a boat through, the lower Wisconsin, unless you have a gator tail or some sort of jet or something like that, you're not running most of that lower Wisconsin with just a boat.
And I haven't even been really lower on the lower. I've been staying north of Lake Wisconsin just because it's easier. You go south of the dam. You go south into the lower Wisconsin River Scenic Waterway.
Yep.
How many times did we get our kayaks beached?
Oh, we were walking. We walked 3 or 4 times at least with kayaks. So
now you can run a boat. You can. There is a chance, but I mean, you have to know the river very, very well. And there's a couple people I know that can run it.
Yep. But you also have to do your scouting and stuff like that too, because those sandbars change every single day, or not every single day, but year to year those sandbars are different. So you're going through and marking channel points, and
I even say monthly they can change. To be honest, especially if we have a hard rain event, it can definitely move sandbars around.
Yeah. So that the Wisconsin River is, I think, especially the lower Wisconsin by me, because I live in Sauk City, so it's a 2-minute drive down there, and that's what I've been doing in the evenings, is just going down there and fishing from shore. And it's so good. The smallmouth fishing is so good.
It's
Like
got good muskie fishing too.
Yeah, the right below the dam.
It's not for lower Wisconsin. I would say it's good muskie fishing. It's not like your trophy muskie fishing in northern Wisconsin.
No, but like, I got one, opening day, got like a mid-30s opening day, and then we've moved a couple others. But like, even like a little bit north of like, once you get north on the Wisconsin River, it gets really good. Like the only reason that the muskies are below the Prairie du Sac Dam, actually, like on the lower Wisconsin, because the Prairie du Sac Dam is the last dam before the Wisconsin River hits the Mississippi.
Right.
So it's the lower Wisconsin is right there. So the only reason that muskies are in the lower Wisconsin is because they've come through the dam, through Lake Wisconsin. They've never actually stocked muskies in the lower Wisconsin. So all those fish have come from Lake Wisconsin, basically through the dam. So apparently, I was actually talking to a DNR officer, because they're doing studies down there the past couple of years, and he's been saying that the muskie numbers in that lower Wisconsin have been very good, like very good. Yep,
like natural reproduction good then.
Yep, like and size wise too, like 40-inch average, like size wise too. So like they're growing and they're getting big, and so it's definitely getting good. I mean, pike, smallmouth, largemouth. I lost one of the biggest bowfin I've ever seen last year.
Really?
Walking from shore. I thought it was a muskie.
Wow. That's a big one.
Mid-30s at least.
And they fight. They're beasts.
So good.
They're so mean.
Good. So good. So, yeah, I mean, the fishing on the lower Wisconsin is just so good. And then, it's all, like, a lot of it's public too. So come fall, you could do like a hunting, fishing, kind of trip too. So,
and it's also great for camping.
Yeah,
those sandbars are all that's power that lower scenic riverway, and you can camp on those sandbars. And even north of the dam, north of the dam gets tricky because there's private islands, but there's also BLM up there, and there's public. I mean, you have to know what you're doing north of there. South of the dam, it gets pretty. If it's an island through that area, it's pretty much public at that point.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to figure out. So,
but the thing that's been driving me there is there's no people. There's people, but there isn't people, because it's like you have a lot of party boats and bigger boats on Lake Wisconsin. You get the pontoon boats because it's a lake, but you get up past Decorah, and the river changes to more of a shallow river like the lower Wisconsin, and now it's guys in the smaller fishing boats. It's the jet boats. It's the guys like me in mud boats. And we're out there for a different reason. And there's not as many of us. So, like, last Sunday we were out. It was gorgeous. It was 90 degrees out. We found a nice sandbar. We hung out, and I maybe had a dozen boats go by us in 6 hours. That was it. And we had a sandbar, which was, I don't know, the size of a football field-ish, to ourselves. Not one other person was on it. Whereas you can't even find a spot to pull over and hang out on the Madison chain.
No. And like the Madison chain, like, it is very good fishing. It is
it's
really
great
good
fishing.
But it's a whole different beast to conquer.
It is.
Like that's why, like, I'm getting the boat, and like I'm doing a muskie league on Thursdays, which I'm like really excited for to get back into and do. But I'm like, part of me is dreading just that Madison fishing experience, because it's just like a whole nother, like,
I forgot Madison in a Thursday weeknight league for muskies.
They have a Tuesday and a Thursday league night for muskies. So I'm doing the Thursday night because I did it 4 or 5 years ago. So I still know the guys that are in it, and it's one of those things. So for me, it's more of like a get together and fish kind of thing versus like, oh, I'm gonna win anything or whatever.
Right.
So
it's less about the competition, more about the social aspect.
Yeah, it's definitely more about the social thing. But I'm like, part of me is like, oh, that Madison fishing experience I've avoided for so long just because I've had the kayak. So like, I've done go to Wingra and stuff like that, which was really nice because it's, for the most part, it's just kayaks and paddle boarders and stuff. So
Right. There's a couple of boats. It's electric only. You get a couple
Yeah.
of boaters in there, but not many.
no, and so like we'll see. Next Thursday is going to be the first Madison outing of the year. I'm like super excited to get the boat out, but part of me is like, oh man, like this is going to be
And I know
this experience.
and we're really dogging on Madison, but it's not that bad. I mean, it's like any other lake around
Yep.
a lot of population. Is all it really is. I mean, I do enjoy fishing the Madison Chain. I fished it a weeknight tournament last year in the boat. I'm starting to fish the weeknight kayak league now. It's just there's something that draws me to the river, and not only like the fishing of the river, but the aspects like you can get away from people, and we're able to go out there with my family and hang out and relax, and it's a different experience. It's less about fishing; it's more about being on the water and in nature. That's the difference.
And just like the whole just like atmosphere around it is different.
Right.
Like I don't know how many times like I've gone to the river fishing and just like sat along shore and just like watched like the paddlefish jump up and stuff like that, or seen the smallmouth like crashing and just like watched it versus like I gotta go catch something now or whatever. Just like literally sat there and just watched it for an hour and been like, oh, I haven't even cast it or done anything yet. So no,
and cruising around the backwaters on the trolling motor, and all of a sudden you stumble into a bunch of wood ducks or mallards or sandhills, and you just kind of stop and watch them. Or I'll grab my camera, and it's like it's different because it's to me it's less about the fishing, it's more about the wildlife and the experience. Yeah. Whereas when I'm out on like the Madison Chain, it's a populated area and they're great lakes, they're gorgeous lakes, but it's surrounded by houses.
Yep.
And it's a lot of pontoon boats, it's sailboats, it's fishing boats. It's just a lot of overall boating pressure.
Yep.
And you go out there to fish, and you're focused on fishing and less about the relaxation. Like when I go out on the Madison Chain, I'm out there like working on different fishing techniques. I'm out there to focus on catching fish.
100%. Yeah.
And it's not the same relaxation as I'm going to go out there. If I fish, I fish. If I don't fish, I don't fish. If I run my boat up on a sandbar to hang out for an hour and don't do anything, that's all right.
Yep, exactly. So yeah, I definitely agree that like, and that's like why I'm keeping my kayak too, because like for the longest time I was like, I'm getting this boat, like how much am I going to use the kayak? But like for the scenarios that like I want to use it for, like the lower Wisconsin, like for the duck hunting and stuff like that, nothing else would really work. So I'm like, no, like, because I know the second I would get rid of it, like I would regret. Like even if I use it 3 times a year,
exactly,
it's worth it. Those 3 times a year,
right?
Like it's not like I have a loan on it or anything like that. Like it's
right.
paid for. Like it doesn't matter. Like it can sit in my garage.
It's not going to rot. It's not like it's going to rot away, or it's not wood.
Yeah, exactly. So if it sits in my garage and I use it, 3 times a year or whatever, those 3 times a year, I know it'll be worth it 100% to keep it, because it's those special scenarios where I, can't use the boat. Obviously, I need the kayak, and it'll make it worth it 100%. So, yeah, it's definitely, the boat is going to be a toy.
It's going to be great, though.
Yeah, it's going to be good, but it's definitely just another tool.
And that's just it. And as I was looking at boats, looking to get out of the Ranger and change, I'm like, what's going to give me a good fishing experience? What can handle the rougher Madison water? What can still run shit? And it really comes to the fact there isn't a perfect boat. There isn't. I mean, it's not like I'm going to go run and take this boat on Lake Michigan or something like that. I mean, there just isn't a perfect boat. So you have to get what's best suited for you is really what it works out to be.
Yeah, 100%. So, yeah.
And that's where that kayak fills that weird gap. Like you can use your kayak, like, I've kayak fished for salmon on Lake Michigan. I'm willing to take my kayak out there more than my boat.
Yeah.
The kayak's got different options for like fishing as well. I mean, like it fills a hole which my boat doesn't actually fill. So it works great to like open up that expanse a little more is really what it does.
Exactly. So yeah, it's definitely just like that. The boat's another tool, and yeah, so it's good though. I'm excited to get it, and we'll see what happens with it. So
awesome. Well, I've pretty much asked everyone this question to kind of close it off. So I'm going to ask you, what is your Well, let's go with the 3 normal questions. We'll do all 3.
All right.
What is your, like, if you could hunt one species, like, what is your dream species to hunt?
Okay.
We'll take it.
I would do an elk hunt, like an elk hunt in like Idaho or something like that. Yeah.
Sure.
Yep.
Just majestic Rocky Mountain Range elk hunting.
Yep. Yeah. I think a moose hunt in Alaska would be really cool too. But an elk hunt is just like one of those things where like, yeah, elk hunt.
All right. And you kind of answered my second question, because if you could travel anywhere in the world to hunt, where would you travel to? Like destination? Oh, that doesn't answer that question. So if you could travel anywhere, where would you travel? Would you
hunt?
Yeah. Or fish.
Oh,
hunt or fish.
Okay. Hunt. I've heard the hunt. I haven't looked into it enough to like but I've heard the hunting in New Zealand is amazing.
State. Oh, for sure.
So I think hunting would be New Zealand or Alaska for hunting. Fishing, 100%. I'm already like budgeting it out for fishing because it's one of those trips. But the Seychelles, I want to do the Seychelles. I want to do Cosmolito. I want to do GT on the fly. Like, I'm already budgeting it out. It's in the 10-year plan already.
Nice.
So it's
it's got its own savings account right now.
But
nice.
You're looking at $11,000 for just the trip. But it's one of those things where like
it's a once in a lifetime one.
Yep, Seychelles Cosmolito is the trip.
And then last, but this is really important for like me, and one thing I really actually, what do you have, like, what's your favorite tradition when it comes to hunting? Do you have a tradition that you do every single year? It could be for deer hunting, or if you have like a fishing, like if you do a fishing trip every year, like do you have a tradition that you guys just won't miss for anything?
That's a good one.
Like for deer hunting for me, Steve and I, we wake up at 4:44 because that's the magic time. And that comes back from Escanaba in the moonlight.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like that's just a silly tradition we have. We wake up at 4:44.
I don't think, like, to be honest, I don't think I have any like real traditions that I do. Like for deer hunting, like we would always go, like for the first 2 years that I deer hunted, we went, my grandpa belonged to a hunting cabin, like up north by Crivets.
Sure.
Wisconsin. So like we went up there the first 2 years. So that was kind of like the tradition of like spending the time up there. But other than that, I mean, other than getting out like opening morning gun deer season, you know, kind of like,
sure,
you know, maybe setting out the orange clothing, you know, the night before to air it all out, and you know that sort of stuff.
Yeah, because you really don't do a deer camp or anything, do you? So it's hard to really have traditions. Like you can have your own routine, but it's hard to have traditions if it's just yourself. I get it.
Exactly. So like, and like last year too was the first year that I didn't even gun hunt.
Sure.
Or no, the previous year, because I had shot my doe, and like I said, I only hunt for meat, so our freezers were full, and I was like, I didn't even go out, to be honest. So, I guess I don't really have like traditions. Maybe I should come up with one. I'm sure once the kid gets older and she wants to go hunting and stuff like that, I'm sure we'll come up with something. So
that'll change it. Some sort of like you cook dinner on Friday night, or play games or something. You'll have something that'll just happen, and you'll be like, this is a tradition for us.
Exactly.
Well, it's been great talking to you, man, and catching up. I haven't seen you in a while, and
definitely.
You had a good 2020.
Yeah.
I mean, even with COVID, I mean, you had great hunt. I mean, your hunting was great.
Mm-hmm. Hunting was good. Fishing was good. So
yeah, it
can only get better this year. I mean, I've already caught the same amount of muskies that I have last year this year already. So I got one. So it can only go up from here.
There you go. Well, all right, Austin. I really appreciate you being on the show.
Yeah, man. Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Everyone else, thanks for joining in, and until next time.
Thanks for tuning in to another killer episode on Paddle and Fin. Don't forget to go check out our website at paddle_and_fin.com. Don't forget to check out the YouTube channel at Paddle and Fin. If you got a question, comment, want to hear from a future guest on a future episode, feel free to email us at paddle_and_fin@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Paddle and Fin on Facebook and Instagram. Shout out to our show supporters, Angler. The Angler button and app just makes for a better time on the water and creates a virtual logbook for every fishing outing out on the water. Shout out to Rocktown Adventures, located in northern Illinois, for all your kayaking, camping, and hiking needs. Shout out to Jig Masters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to jigmasters.com